Hi, so today we are going to learn about the architecture of the programs, the designs, the principles, the design patterns, how you do it, and what is cohesiveness, what is coupling, loose coupling, and how you can make, you can apply the principle dry, which is called as do not repeat yourself, how you can make the reusable code so that you don't have to write same thing again and again, and it's easier for you to maintain the code. So before we go in there, let's try to understand the architecture on high level. So usually any application, enterprise application or a web application is a three-tier application, and we'll under and these three tiers are very separate from each other. They are very loosely coupled. I'll let you know the reason why. So first thing is your user interface. So this we can call it as the presentation layer. It could be a web interface, or it could be the voice command, wherein, like, if you might have used the Siri on iPhone, or the Amazon Echo, and Google Home. So there are several devices these days. As we are advancing, you can give the voice and the command will happen. And in few companies, they are trying to do the coding on voice commands, so you don't have to write your code by hands. You can give the commands by mouth, and then the programming will happen, and you can achieve the same result what you're achieving by doing the coding by hands. You can do it by voice. You can just give instructions. This is the presentation layer in short. Let me put it here. So this one is presentation layer. It could be your mobile application, it could be web application, it could be anything for that sort, right? And so now whatever commands you're giving, we can just take an example of Walmart website, and you have a presentation layer as a web interface, or from the computers people are directly using it. So they are trying to interact with your application from the presentation layer. They'll try to fill some data in the form, and then they expect some values for the product. They try to put something in the form, whatever you submitted it, then it went to the middleware. So this guy is called as the middleware, or you can call it as the business layer. So business layer means I'll let you know how the presentation can differ, or even the data layer. So we took the example of Walmart website. You want some products, wanna buy a laptop with $500 range. Now there would be several laptops which would be lying somewhere here in your database. We call it as inventory. So we'll say it as data layer. So here your database will now this could be arbitrary. It could be another web service, or it could be the in-memory database. It could be NoSQL, SQL, MongoDB, or anything. But in general, we are just assuming that it's a data layer. It's a data source. So this layer would talk to the database, or the external from wherever the data comes up. So presentation layer, you are not going to call direct data code or database code. In old school was from the UI itself, they will do the database commands, and then from the website, people will hack. So from website, if you do right click and you say view source code, you see your entire code, and people were writing their ID, password, and database details. So from the website directly, they were trying to retrieve the data, and that's why a lot of hacking has happened, and people lost their precious information and data. So after that, the best practice came that this layer should not know about this layer. This should be self-sustaining in itself, and then whosoever tries to connect, there should be just the communication between them. And this layer should database should not know about UI. And so that's why we call it as the business layer or the middle layer. So middle layer acts between whatever request comes here, it is going to process, then based on that it's going to make the database query or whatever way it needs to retrieve data, and then it hands over to the data layer, and then data layer takes care. So here you can think of Hibernate. Here the Hibernate comes in picture, wherein the Hibernate layer, data layer, will actually talk to the Oracle or whatever the database which is underlying. So tomorrow, if you have some changes in data, if you so imagine previously the application was a mixed stuff. It was not architected or layered properly in three tier or whatever tier. So everything was a mix. So in our example, if we made one file and everything is a mix, means everything sits in just one file and a main function, and that's all. So we try to separate out simple, smaller methods, smaller classes, smaller packages, and then there would be different packages for different responsibilities of the application. The part of application which is doing business logic has to have a business package, or you can call it as the middle layer. However, the data layer will be different from the presentation layer. So today you are trying to use Spring UI. Tomorrow you say no, Spring UI sucks. It does not runs properly on mobiles, or it does not runs properly on the monitors which are having high resolution. It's not fluid. Fluid means, I'll just tell you, this is called as fluid. So if you change the resolution, it has to adjust itself. But the some frameworks, they will crack the data will go here and there. It looks weird, it looks bad. So those guys, those UIs are not fluid, especially the old schools JSPs and all that. It sucks basically. It's not that fluid. However, the Angular and new frameworks, if you change the size of the resolution, it tends to adjust itself without breaking the stuff much. That's how. So if you have proper separation of code, today you will try to connect with some presentation layer. Tomorrow you have to just delete this and put some different. Instead of Angular, you can put React or whatever. Yes. Same is with database. Today you are talking to Oracle. Tomorrow you can have Polyglot or other. So entire application might not get impacted. Now, business layer or middleware, let me explicitly call this as middle layer. So we can call it as middle layer or middleware. They are used synonym, like almost similar in a similar way. Middleware. So there is something which is called as the request and response, or the web server web application. This is going to send request to here. Now there is something which is called as authentication. So the hacker would try to get hold of your business layer, would try to understand whatever. Here is an example that Walmart's get the product from Duracell, and then whatever amount or whatever is the amount of Duracell, it would add 20 pennies to each battery. So that is their secret, their business logic. That if the battery is from Nippo, it would at $10. If it's from Duracell, it would at $20. Whatever the secret recipe they have for their business profitability, those kind of logic they'll keep it here. So they'll get the data, they'll do some modification, apply taxes, and have the cost, and the final cost they are going to return it to the user in form of the response. It could be JSON response. So we'll be learning MongoDB, Node.js, and then we would be learning about the JSON responses basically, which are consumed by your application. So application will Angular or presentation layer will just translate whatever data comes in. So hacker would try to attempt to get the business logic or details which you don't want to expose. So from here, so that's why business logic is very important and it's secure. So you have to have an authentication layer in between. And more or less whatever I'm explaining here, it's same all the application in all the application, may it be banking or whatever. So here they have different products which do authentication by doing LDAP. LDAP is one way of figuring out the user ID password if it is correct or not. If it is incorrect, it would just respond from here itself. If it is correct, this is called as the interceptor design pattern. So the patterns what I explained you here is MVC, model view controller kind of. This the model, this is the view, and this the controller. MVC is having the interceptor design pattern over here. It's the request is getting intercepted. They are trying to understand if the user is the real user or the fake user, or whatever. What's the source of the user? Everything they'll log it, and based on that, it would allow or deny the access. Once it gets the access, it would try to run its business logic, and based on the business logic it's going to retrieve data from the database. Once it gets the data from whatever is in the database, then it will try to do the augmentation or data massaging, because whatever data you tend to get from your originally you kept all the prices or whatever, you're not going to give it to your end customer. So the data massaging application logic will run over here, and then it sends it to the presentation layer. Now here also in cloud, so when we talk about cloud, so database server could be sitting on a different machine, this would be on different machine, and this presentation on altogether Akamai or caching servers are altogether different machines. So they are separated. For your on your laptop you will have everything on one machine, so students don't get the vision that that thing can happen, that it's distributed, everything could be distributed. So just imagine everything is distributed. So what happens here is you might have another authentication layer, because there is a question, maybe in interviews people ask that what is more important, application or the data? So I would always go with the data, because application anyways after few years it's going to get waste, because technology changes, you need to rewrite or whatever. But whatever data is there, it is always important. So banking records, banking history, or and it also depends on the application's perspective. But however, for any organization, data is precious. Application can change, but data, they do not want to lose any of their important data, their informations. So from any server, whenever the request comes, they will have a concept called as tunneling. Tunneling means this IP can have inbound traffic only from this IP address. If it is any other IP address from Pakistan, China, wherever, the hacking countries which are famous, they try to simulate as if it's the some friendly request which is happening from the application to the from the application server to database server, and then they gain the control, hack it. So we don't want that. So that's why there is something called as tunneling and another authentication layer. So this is pretty much the three-tier architecture versus everything mixed in a big box with huge methods, which becomes difficult to maintain. And the old school pattern was that in the servlets and JSP, they'll mix the JDBC code, or they'll try to do the direct queries from the JSP page, which is supposed to be the presentation layer. then and there itself, but that's not actually happening now. Inside the business layer, if we try to use Spring, we can leverage the dependency injection, which is called as DI. So it is another having further more layers. You can have singleton design patterns, factory patterns. So the object creation also happens on the need basis, and there is a lot to learn. We'll cover in that lecture. But simple things first. So now let's try to understand our synopsis of the project. So before I do that, mm, let me use Google Docs. So by end of every technology sessions, we will have the project submissions. So what all we are supposed to use here, and what's the application. So our application would be called as library management. So it would have some domain objects. You can create several objects, but it would have two main domain objects. One would be a book and student. You can make some manager classes, the librarian classes, or whatever you want to make. But these would be a two. A book can be assigned to student, and a student can have multiple books. But one book can be assigned to one student at a time. So there, this is called as one-to-many relationship or one-to-one relationship. One student can have many books. So from this side, one to many relationship. But one book can be assigned to one student at a time. So it's one-to-one relationship. So anyway, let's not take that in consideration. On high level, you would have two domain objects. One would be the book and one would be the student. Now, what would be required over here is you will have the presentation layer. So our presentation layer is going to be your system.out.println console. So you will get the, I told you a few days back how you can give the options, command prompt options. So in the system, you will have the option. So you are going to make the, so you do not have any data source. You will use, we call it as, either you can use in-memory database, DB2 or whatever, or you can use the lists. So the example we took here in our hashing example, that we created some values all by ourselves, and then we store it in the map or the list. So that's how you are going to create a map of a student, and whatever number of books are assigned to him, you have to add it there. So in the system, when system loads, you have to initialize with some books and students. So we are just trying to write a high level algorithm. When program starts, and you can always try to add the student on the runtime. So you can ask, do you want to register, or do you are you existing user, or you are a new user? Option 1 for new user, option 2 for existing user. If you are an existing user, give your student ID. So based on the student ID, you will pull up the record from your application, and then you will say, welcome student ID so and so, which book you want to mm, what we say allocate, or which you want to assign book would be assigned, right? And then you will give them the option. So you just have to have some 10 or 20 books. Do not put hundreds or whatever, just keep 20 books. And then please provide the book ID. So then you will have book ID, so and so has been assigned to so and so student. That would be a message. And then you will say press 0 to terminate or press 1 to continue. So we already saw that example here. If you just want to check it out, please go to my design patterns repository, and then on any of the design pattern, I have this interface everywhere, so you can find that in the client program, these options, what you want to do. And based on, I would take plus press 1 to do this, 2 to do that. So just have this menu driven program. I'll just put the stuff here. So I'm going to keep the document link in the YouTube video. So if you want to create this project, you will get help by looking at the synopsis, by looking at high level requirements. Software is not bad or good. A software is evaluated on the basis of the requirement. Does it fulfills the requirement? If you made a very fancy, very good program, but if it fails to satisfy the basic needs and requirements, then it's of no use. Even though your program is simple and it does what is needed, it's awesome. So just try to have based on the requirement, your program should work. So first thing is you would have a menu thing, so it's easier for the user to input and retrieve data. So when program starts, you give option to create student account or retrieve student account. Once, so if you have created, you will get the ID. Once you get student account ID, then give options to assign book. After assignment, give user friendly message. Do not allow duplicate. So this is the business logic, or we call it as validation. So in the system, one book is already assigned to a student. If he try to assign it or next time, so you should give a message that you are not allowed to get or reassign the same book again to yourself. Or if some book is assigned, it should not get assigned to someone else in the system, because physically the book is gone, and in the system if you assign it, creates trouble, and that happens. So you just need to take care of all those validations. We call it as validations. So before assigning, please make sure that book is available. If it is not available in the domain, you will say is available true or false. So please check before assigning. If is available is true, it could be a flag, basically attribute or property, then you can assign, otherwise leave it. So this would be do not allow duplicate assignments. And then you can always terminate, say 1 2 0, whatever numbers or options, user friendliness you just want to make it. So this would be pretty much it. And what you need to use, and book should be sortable. It should be alphabetically sorted, or it should be based on the ID, so you can give options. I don't know how well you can make it, but books should have sorting by name and numbers. So once I try, the user sees he has these options, and then so you will have that in list, and then you can use map, use TFFERE into different collections. You can use sat, list, array, or whatever you want. You need to use that. Then you need to use loosely coupled, which means each class is doing its own job. So you can make a library manager program which will have the student information and the book information. You should not mix it, that book is having the book class itself is doing the assignment, or the student class is doing something. So you have to you have to keep the separate responsibility, and they should be loosely coupled. There should be third class which is doing the function or job. So tomorrow if you have to make changes, you can, without disturbing the book class or the student class, you can just make changes in business. Sometime I have seen that people will have one big class, they will put book and everything over there, and if they have to make changes, it will impact the domain object, your domain object. So domain object has to be separate and very cohesive, and they should be loosely coupled. They should not be intermingled or intermixed. So, and try to Google these keywords also. They, you will find several other ways and types of implementation, and try to have it loosely coupled and cohesive classes. Yeah, that would be pretty much it. And note, please raise the pull request by, so I'll, these are just instructions. Pull request in, I'll just give you the repo name so you can try it out and put it there in that repository as a, and just by making a project and struggling it around, facing a lot of errors and issues, doing googling and fixing it will make you learn more. Whatever you have heard, or whatever you might have done so far in bits and pieces, this will help you to focus and concentrate and generate something tangible. So it would be fun and enjoyment. So more energy you put on this project, it's going to be simple. I believe it would be a 5 hours effort for you guys. How you want to divide it, 2 hours every day or whatever. But the more you will try, better learner you will become for the concepts. And if, and another option, you can just do Google, download a ready-made project and just put it. So it's not for my benefit, it's for your benefit. The more hard work you put, more smooth program you will make, better learner you will become. Fine. So I think this is pretty much it. You guys make the project and submit it, and I hope we'll be meeting on Sunday, either Sunday evening, or we'll just meet on Monday evening, so that you guys get enough time to finish up these project. I'll drop a email with our next class. So for now, I am hoping it to be Monday evening, same time, evenings.